The Becoming Flame podcast broadcasts pure, unfiltered power exchange that stokes the flame of your being. Because it's time to remember. It's time to return. It's time to become flame. This episode of Becoming Flame is brought to you by Phoenix. Phoenix is a ritual luxury house devoted to erotic feminine embodiment. We create alchemical intimacy oils and functional fragrances infused with spagyric botanicals designed to soften the nervous system, open the body, and awaken life force vitality. Our formulations are crafted as tools of self-initiation. They are not cosmetic. They are not decorative. They are designed to be felt. They are designed to shift. Each oil facilitates a cellular shift into relaxation and receptivity, activating and opening up an archetypal femininity that your body knows and is yearning to step into. These oils allow the body to open safely into sensual intelligence, magnetism, and creative power. They open the libido and open creative sexual energy. When the body is safe, it softens. When it softens, it receives. When it receives, it creates. And when it creates, the entire world shifts. We believe that women who sit deeply in their bodies, in their erotic intelligence and sovereignty, become powerful creators of their lives and the environments around them. Our products are initiations into that coherence. Luxury and experience, devotional in use, transformational in effect. Get yours now at phenix.com. That's PHENXX.com. Hi everybody, today we have an amazing guest. Her name is Caitlin Erica. She is a Sydney-based feminine embodiment teacher, birth doula, whose work has been shaped by just the most amazing life events. And I love talking to women who have taken just these deep, visceral challenges and turned them around, walked into the flame, walked into the shadow. She is a woman who is not afraid of who she is. She's just not afraid of anything at all. She's really living on purpose. You know what I mean? Like, despite being trained in birth work, she followed what she described as more of an inner calling to actually go into stripping in Berlin. So she's working at these two extremes of feminine archetypal work, and she's done the doula work, she's done the stripping work, and now she's bringing that together into a more balanced, I guess, feminine embodied body of work, where it's her philosophy is all around this collision point where body shame, impurity culture, sensuality, childbirth, feminine power, all of that comes together into her signature offer, and it's called Strip Her. And I think it's so clever, right? Not just because she's been a stripper and she's done that work and she's embodied that, side of the feminine archetype, but it's like, who do we find when we strip all the rest away? Who is there? Who is it that we get to live with at that point? How do we incorporate the truth of who I be outside or underneath everything else and start there? So I reached out to Caitlin because I was like, I want to talk to the kinds of women who know how to go deep, who know how to penetrate, who know how to get rid of all the noise, and who know how to come home to her. So in Strip Her, she is helping women feel safe enough to stop performing and start inhabiting their bodies. What makes her interesting is not just that she talks about sensuality, but she refuses the split that so many women are taught to live inside. So whether it's having our sacred on one side and our sexual on the other, or our respectable here and our alive over there. You know, how do we actually be the multifaceted, multi-dimensional, multi-complex beings of women that we are? How do we step outside of the narrative that we are one thing, the whore or Madonna, you know, Mary or Magdalene, you know? And I think that it's this body of women now that are saying, what are you even talking about? I'm me. And whoever you get to meet in that interaction with me is what I was that day, what I was that moment, what I was in that moment I connected with you. And that's not the depth of me. That's not the completion of me. That's who I was in that second. And I'm all of that and more. And owning the shame or owning the shadow, owning all of these aspects that keep us out of the truth, keep us in the performance, keep us in the broken. So let's get into it with Caitlin Erica. Welcome to the podcast, Caitlin Erica. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. You're one of those people who, when you read their story, when you come across them, it's really hard not to be intrigued, not to be fascinated, not to be curious. And so I was wanting to introduce you in a way that I could tell your story. And I stopped myself going, no, there's no one else that could tell your story and introduce yourself better than you. So could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, please?
Okay. I mean, it's hard for even me, to be perfectly honest, but I help women to reclaim the forbidden feminine, all of the parts of themselves that we've been taught to hide, to fear, to distrust. And the way that I came into that is because after training as a birth doula, I had this unyielding, intuitive call it the voice of intuition or spirit or delusion, I don't know. But it told me to become a stripper, and that the women there had access to something that I didn't yet, and that they were to be my next teachers. So I've just been in this wildly unexpected school of life journey with these, kind of real world initiations, opening me up, expanding my worldview, my understanding, my capacity. And then naturally I thought, hang on, I've got to share this with women. How do I get this out to the world? So that's what I do.
So I want to take it chapter by chapter, if that's okay with you, because I think how you got here and okay. So the reason I want to take it chapter by chapter is because you're not the only person that's become a stripper before. You're not the only person that's done that work, whether it's from a let's call it sacred perspective or not. But you're one of the only people that knows how to alchemize the experience. And so I really want to get into like who you are, that you could pull this knowledge out and you could use this and you could teach this and you could share this. So how did you grow up? Like, were you in a shame-based kind of environment? Were you somebody who was very growing up free and liberal? Like, where was your foundational sort of baseline set?
Yeah, I say that I was riddled with shame, and that's true, but not in an obvious way, not in a way that I was even aware of it. It's like when you go on this inward journey, you start like waking up to these pieces. Like often it's like they were subtle, it was hidden. So I had a very I had like a beautiful childhood growing up. I'm the youngest of six. I grew up going to church every Sunday, like this very loving Catholic family, like this Irish Catholic lineage. A lot of music and singing and dancing in the house. Grew up very privileged, very blessed in all of the ways. And then I just wanted to travel because I knew that I wanted to be a mother someday. And I felt like my parents had given me everything I could have ever asked for. And I thought of that saying, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day, teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. And my parents really kind of built their empire from scratch themselves. And then I had everything that I could have ever asked for or wanted. And I thought, hang on, but I need to raise myself. Like, how could I ever parent children if I've never had to self-parent, if I've never had to, like, I was always, the baby of the family. I was always Timmy's little sister or Allie's little sister or Phil Hudson's daughter. And I was just like, it didn't matter how old I got, I was always the baby of the family. So I just wanted to go out and
You were
explore.
always in reference to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I just had this hunger to explore life. And I moved to New York. I didn't have a home or a job lined up, or I didn't have a friend there. And I just knew that I wanted to build a life for myself and start from scratch. And so, I got mugged at the subway, and it was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. I was just this, like, eyes wide open. Everything is a teacher. What is life here to show me? So I really drank it all up for years and was exploring these different areas of life and found festivals and explored psychedelics. And I thought that I was a pretty free and open woman. And so when this call to become a stripper came through, I was like, oh, hang on. I thought I was pretty free, but it just showed me where I was still holding shame and like holding the stigma, around, like, hang on, these women are going to be my teachers, because I hadn't considered that strippers and sex workers would be teachers. I was still churning the stories that they, if they had other options, they would have chosen differently. The idea that someone would choose that with other options, just like my brain couldn't compute that. So that was my first lesson in humility. And yeah, I think the more, like, when I was on this path and doing the work, even before I became a stripper, like, I stopped drinking alcohol for a year because I realized that I would only self-pleasure on nights that I'd been drinking. And so I think I've just always been a very inquisitive person and reflective person. And I'll catch my patterns and I'll be like, okay, well, why am I only self-pleasuring on nights when I've been drinking? I wake up the next morning feeling like ick, like I had to get myself drunk.
Like you had a one-night stand.
Like I had to get myself drunk to have my way with myself. Like I had to find a way to knock myself out, or, loosen my inhibition so that I could get what I want. I was like, this feels like predatory to myself. Like, there are these parts of me that are not in harmony. Right. And so I wanted to, like, explore my relationship to sexuality and self-pleasure, which was pretty non-existent at the time. So it's like, kind of like pulling at this thread and then seeing how everything unravels. I was like, oh wow, like, I grew up in this, like, beautiful, loving household, going to church and very devotional, and loved that. And then started to see where that had been, like, implanting these stories of shame and unworthiness. Is my personal experience. Everyone has their own experience.
What led you initially into birth work?
I remember the first time I ever went into a birthing room in the hospital, and, like, in the birth center, and I was, like, walking down the halls, and I knew that I was in a place where miracles happen, and I could feel this reverence. And it's interesting, actually, because growing up in the church, it's like the thing that the church taught me was reverence. And I feel that sense of reverence when I'm in a birthing room. And I think I've always been so passionate about people, like the inner child, as an energy, as a framework, as a concept, as a relationship. I always want to make my inner child proud. And, like, she gets to grow up and be like, oh my gosh, I become her. And so I started, I did my high school work experience for midwifery, because I thought it's either that or I'm going to be on stages as a musician. And I was like, I'm probably going to follow the path of the musician. So let's, like, do the year 10 work experience as the midwife.
I love that. Midwifery and musician, they are literally the same skill set, right?
Yeah. Like I'll either be in devotional service or in rock and roll. So
Hilarious. Okay, I love the way that you actually seem to be someone who moves in extremes to find the balance.
I guess so. I want to live this life fully.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, I'm Sagittarius rising. So I'm like, let me go and explore the world and like come back with like all of these like learnings and lessons. Like, I'm going to have great stories when I'm an old woman.
You've got great stories now.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go and you do your work placement at 15 years old in midwifery, and you're in a birthing suite, and this is how you
So,
start that.
no, okay. So rewind. I'm the youngest of six. I've got 20 nieces and nephews. I
Right.
became an auntie when I was 5. So I've always been growing up around pregnant women and new babies and kids, like so I think that
That's definitely the connection piece that I was missing. I was like, how did you want that so young? That's a very
yeah.
unique. Okay, okay.
Yeah, so
So
the
you've
reason I
been
was
in
in the
birthing
birthing suite
suites.
was when I was
Got it.
visiting my sister who was like having her baby, and I would go and I would find, so I was probably like maybe between 8 and 12, and I would pull out the photo album at this birthing center and I would look through all of the photos. And, when the internet was a thing and I could, like, YouTube was known, the first videos I wanted to watch were like, oh, let me see a birth, because it had been
Oh,
years since any of my sisters had been pregnant and I'd still never actually witnessed a birth. And I used to beg my sisters, even when they weren't pregnant, like, but next time you're pregnant, you'll let me in, right? You'll let me in. Like, I want to
wow.
see. So there was just always that in the background. And then I thought, I'm not actually going to pursue this. And then years later, it kind of came around again. I was like, oh, actually, I do want to pursue this.
So I had a home birth, and I know talking from, so I had a doula and two midwives. And if I birthed again, I might be open to free birthing, but it was my first ever birth, at least in this body in this lifetime. And the high that everybody else was on from I was definitely not in that. I mean, I was in an altered state, but I wasn't like, this is euphoria. This is like, no, I was the worker and everybody else was, they, like when I came out of it, when I came back into consciousness, it was like, everybody's so high right now. Like everyone is just in this, it's like the veil is so thin. I think it's a very spiritual experience, or it's a very alt- altering experience to be in the presence of someone who's birthing.
Mm.
So I get it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're in the place where miracles are happening. It's like a human is coming
Mm.
earthside. It's like it's shifting so much, shifting stage, shifting dimensions. When I was first exploring it, it was, for me, it was less about the woman though, and more about
The child.
welcoming the babies.
Mm.
Yeah. And so, like, when I didn't follow that path, like, I wanted to, I felt really inspired by festivals and creative events because I could see these people were being guided by their inner child. And I think children are our biggest teachers because they haven't been conditioned. They're just so free and they're real and they're raw and they ask us questions. And like you clock where you've been conditioned. Like I went to help my niece when she was playing with this toy. I was like, what's she doing? Oh, I'll show her how to play with it. I was like, wow, Caitlin, how narrow-minded you are. Like that's the whole point of play. There are no rules. Like she's making it up. She's great. She's fine. And I'm going to tell her she's doing it wrong. Oh, this is the way you're supposed to play with this. Like I was like, oh wow, I just clocked where I run the script and I conform and I do things a certain way. And you spend enough time with the little ones and they just show you what freedom is. So I got
And they
really
show you where your accepting the limitations of the guidelines that are completely artificial.
Yeah, mummy, why are there homeless people? Why is there war? And we find ourselves like trying to give some kind of a rational reason for these things. It's like, wow.
The language that we even give to children about their bodies starts so early, so early. So connecting the dots, going back through your thread and your life story, what then shifted you out of doula work and onto the next path?
So I got tipped off by my spiritual teacher. She said, I'd only just trained. I'd only just finished my training. And she said, I don't think you're going to start taking on birthing clients straight away. There's more that life wants to teach you that no doula school is teaching. And the path is going to be seemingly unrelated. You might get a job at a fruit shop or something thinking, what am I doing here? I've just trained as a birth doula. Please, 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 would you trust the path? Because I promise you, wherever life leads you next will absolutely be connected to birth work. Fast forward to 2 or 3 weeks later, this voice dropped in and told me to go to a strip club. And I laughed it off at first. I was like, yeah, okay, guys, sure, good one. It came back and it said, no, really. The women there have access to something and they're to be your next teachers. So I think having that, like being tipped off by my teacher and then that message coming through, I was like, hang on, how is this connected to birth work? Like, what am I going to learn from strippers about birth? And it took me a couple of weeks to build the courage. But then when I went in there and I watched these women dance and I was like, I would want to see you give birth. Like in my head, I didn't tell any of them, I don't think, but I was watching these embodied women that had a connection to their body, that knew how to follow the pulse of aliveness. And I thought they're going to birth in a different way, but on top of that, they're also living a different path that's going wildly against the grain. Like you have to have a certain amount of yourself on board to birth your way. And these women were living their way. And I thought, these women, they're going to be so powerful when they're giving birth. And that was the piece around like being a doula. I used to think, I used to have this analogy of like the lifesaver and the swimming teacher. Okay. I was like, what do I want to be? Like, what's more important? Like, to be like diving in and saving people who are drowning and in that emergency scenario, like that's so important. We need those, but we also need the swimming coaches that can help prevent that scenario. And when I started stripping, I was like, oh, if I really want to change the face of birth, I got to get to women way, way earlier before they're even thinking of having their babies. If I can help women release shame, come home to their body, trust their intuition, like choose themselves over and over again, have that like deep anchoring of who they are and have their own back and love themselves and have the confidence to command, their or assert their boundaries or ask for what they need or, like just all of these different threads and filaments. There's a saying that we labor how we live. And so it's like how we do one thing is how we do anything. It's crazy that we could expect in this societal setup that we have, that we could expect a woman to just suddenly go and birth in confidence in her body, when confidence in the female body is not being showcased to us. You think about when we first got our period, and it's like young girls like walking to the toilet like with hiding the tampon or the pad in their hands. We're like, do you have a tampon? And like the story is that the female body needs to be hidden, needs to be medicated, needs to be fixed, needs to be protected. It's like, it's such a disempowered story. around what it is to be a woman, which is so far from the truth, actually, and how incredibly powerful we are. So I was like, actually, the work begins way before they're even pregnant.
Mm.
And so I still consider myself like an undercover birth keeper. I'm just disguised as an erotic dance teacher. But it's, yeah,
The
it's all
biggest,
connected.
so I have a really unique birth story because it started about 6 years before I ever met the contributing partner to the child. You know what I mean? Like, this person wasn't even on the radar. I wasn't
Mm.
thinking about that. But yeah, my journey of matrescence was actually an undoing of the misogyny and the masculinity and the patriarchy and the capitalism that I was living in. That even with all of the women's embodiment work, the work that I was doing on myself, um, I had a lot to undo from the spiritual community as well about the idea of leaving the body. Um, and I think that what becoming pregnant does and what birthing does is makes you realize the role of your body in a way that you've never had to consider it before.
Mm.
And it was a very pivotal point in my creation because it's very masculine to think about what you're going to do and then seek out a pathway towards doing that, and it's never going to work when you're creating a baby. That's very obvious to everyone. And yet when we think about doing feminine creation, this misunderstanding of like you just sit there and you just like go with the flow. I I'm so interested to know, and I can share later as well if you want on what I've discovered. But I'm so interested to know what you have learned about birth that is now applicable to your life as a woman in a daily capacity. Like, how do you live your life differently the more you understand birth and the more you understand feminine embodiment?
Somehow, when I was training as a doula, I got really curious about orgasmic birth and the role of pleasure in birth. And this kind of just locked in again when I was guided to go to the strip club, because it's like the house of the erotic, of the
Mm-hmm.
erotic feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And just the more that I have, there's a there's a meme that I saw once years ago that said, "You cannot be an empowered woman and be afraid of your pussy." And I think that if we want to be embodied, if we want to be confident in our skin, then it's kind of like you're making a home in this vessel.
Mm.
So what are the rooms, and like what have you got in the basement that you've locked away and hidden? And where are the
Mm.
rooms that you just don't even go in? Because it's like, are you really at home in your house if there are rooms that you don't even go? And so this concept of like embodiment means really living from the body and
Mm.
coming home to the body and like making it a home, so that there is
Mm.
no part of you that you're in denial of, that you're ashamed of, that you deem unworthy. It's this union, this inner union. um and so a lot of that like is shadow work and understanding, well, like, have I ever been in a fight and I've wanted to hurt someone? It's like, oh, it's like I want to say the thing that'll like slice your Achilles heel. It's like, but I might not, or I might, or it's like, can I get real with the fact that I have these pieces of me? Or am I going to like bypass it and pretend that I'm, holier than thou? It's like, no, this is part of my humanity. I get hurt. And when we're hurt and when we're scared and we feel like something is threatened, then we want to poke back. It's like getting really real with everything about our humanity, so that we can thrive, so that I know what's going on in this house, in this home, in this temple. And also, that like this other piece of like when I said that I was first drawn to protecting children,
Mm,
like, and I wanted to make sure that, you know, when these new souls are coming to earth, like we're their welcome party. If they're
mm,
being born, like their first stop at earth is like bright lights and screaming and like intensity, it's like, whoa, like where have I landed? I don't know if I want to be here. Like immediately your nervous system. So it's like, imagine welcoming children into this soft, sweet, celebratory, gentle place. But when I signed up and I started, you know, learning to be a doula, it's like I met my boss, and my boss is the feminine. And she's like, oh, you want to come work for me? All right. Well, where are all the places that you've shut me out of your life? And for me, the
mm,
biggest place where I had shut her down is around sexuality,
mm,
because I didn't want to be a woman who's immoral, you know, or who's sexual. Like we've got all the names, and the slut shaming, or the dangerous manipulative woman if she's seductive, you know, or if she's got any sense of like sexuality. Um, and so the strip club is where I reclaimed all of those pieces of me. And I came to see, like, oh my gosh, I kept trying to protect my purity. My purity is innate. It's who we
mm.
are. It's not what we're doing. And yeah, if I want to live a powerful life, if I want to be of service, then I've got to be in harmony with myself, with all of her. So I can't even remember what the question was at this point. I know I had a thread.
It was,
uh,
as you learn more about birth, how do you live your life differently? How do you birth your day? How do you birth your businesses? How do you birth yourself day in and day
yeah.
out?
So once I connected these dots, I realized birth is erotic and so is life.
Mm,
Like life is erotic. Everything, like my teacher said, if it's of the physical world, it's sexual energy.
mm-hmm,
Like it's sexual energy is the energy of everything that allows
mm.
us to move through life. And I like that. It's like, well, we're always having sex, even if you're taking out the trash. So we might as well be having good sex, right? Like, you know, like let's
I
be
like this
awake and
definition
present.
as well, where the erotic steps outside of an intimate, a physically intimate sexual experience. When you're talking about birthing, it has to be an erotic experience because it's literally life force. It is literally life being birthed. And it takes a lot of life force to birth, and it literally is the entry point of that life into this. And so it has to be an innately erotic experience. It has to be a sexual experience.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many layers to this. And this is like, this is a really kind of expanded timeline,
Okay.
right? Because, you know, if I were to say that, like, actually the blueprint of birth is that it is pleasurable and that it gets to be orgasmic, a lot of women are going to be like, absolutely not. Sorry, honey, you're delusional. We're not going to get there like this
No.
necessarily, because there's so much in the way. But that's actually what it gets to be. To
The
say, it
other
might not
part,
be in this lifetime,
yeah,
but
the other part that can get you away from that is the expectation that it would be. And so there's a little bit of the hope and desire to have an orgasmic birth might be blocking you as well from doing that. Because I've also experienced those stories of like, I wanted it so badly that the clinging and the attaching and the clamping down, and I was in the control seat, as opposed to like, I'm open and receptive here.
this is our relationship to sex
Totally.
in general, all the time. Like, you know, not even a couple of centuries ago, even, you know, in a shorter timeline, the concept that women would enjoy sex, like there were a lot of women, you know, that were sent into marriages that benefited their families, or, you know, with the dowry, and, you know, that they weren't, marriage was a business arrangement. It wasn't necessarily about love. And so the idea that these women would have pleasure in those setups was like foreign. And they would have laughed if, you know, like the sexual revolution, people saying, no, sex actually gets, you look at the orgasm gap for women, you know, there would have been a lot of like, I've had sex plenty of times and there's nothing pleasurable about, it's like this happens over generations and generations sometimes because we've fallen so far from it. And so there is that, I taught a workshop on this and speaking to that like, I want this, but am I doing something, like the sense that we're doing something wrong if we don't get it, that we failed something. Like there's so much pressure that we put on ourselves. This is massive work. And, if I'm sharing this work, if there's 1,000 people listening to this podcast episode and only 10 of us are going to have an orgasmic birth, and I might not be one of them, then do I not bother having the conversation? What if it gets us this much closer so that our daughters, get closer? It's like, this isn't necessarily like a quick fix solution, because this is thousands of years of sexual repression and suppression and feminine suppression. And so, yeah, it's a really, like, I'm putting up a really big topic, and it's not for the faint-hearted. No. Because it feels like there's so much at stake, and there's so much pressure that we can put on ourselves, and there's like, oh, what am I doing? But the good news is, like, if that's the birth, like if that's the birthright, if that's actually the blueprint, then the solution is sexy. It's like how we do one thing is how we do everything. If birth is meant to be passionate and pleasurable and erotic, like physiologically, hormonally, and neurologically, birth is a sexual event. So birth and orgasm are very linked, very intertwined. So it's like, the more that we come online to our bodies, like, and you have to understand that, like, most women in this lifetime have experienced some kind of sexual assault or trauma, and that's also stored, held in the womb, or it's like, it happened. It's like it's located in the same organ
birthing
group
zone
that birth passes through.
Yeah.
So there's like, not only is there reclaiming like the good news, there's also doing that work to clear out, what may have happened to us. So there's so many layers. It's such delicate territory. But the more that we come home to our bodies and we accept that we are erotic beings, it's in the way you make your tea. It's in the way you eat your food. It's in the way you turn on that water in the morning when you have your shower. It's in the way that you like massage your moisturizer into your face. When people talk about like wanting to live a life that's turned on, and frame it as sexual, it's like, turned on just means like the lights are on, like you're awake. Turned on means you got to feel the icky stuff. Turned on means you feel the triggers. Turned on means you feel the discomfort. Turned on means you don't run away from any of it, because you can't just pick and choose. You have to be willing to feel it all. But when you've made a home for yourself in your body, and you develop the tools, and you've done the deep work to understand the patterns and know how to be in relationship with whatever comes up, that's the intimacy. How can I be intimate with my anger? How can I be intimate with my fear? How can I get closer to it instead of feeling like I want to run away or push back? Like, that's, if we're in rejection to ourselves, we're in rejection to life. So it's like, this whole journey of like living an erotic life is about making love to your life, getting closer, drinking it all up, inhaling it. And that just becomes the modus operandi. That's just how we do everything.
And coming back to those questions that those children were asking, those fictitious children, why do we have war? Why do we have homeless people? Those answers are held within our own bodies, because there's a part of me that XYZ.
Yeah.
And the work of feminine embodiment, as I understand it and as I have been experiencing it, is that every single day we choose to show up aware that we are not these perfect, one-dimensional creatures that are only good and that only do good and that only, you know, whatever our version of our reality that we want to be living in. But it is this ability to sit with the parts of you that you don't think are that great, actually, and sit with them until you understand them. It's not about self-judgment. It's not about self-loathing. It's not about being wrong, but it's about accepting there's an aspect of me that I don't love, in the same way that there's aspects of the world outside of us that we don't love. And we don't change it through protest. We don't change it through marching down the street. We change it by every single woman sitting down. Imagine 4 billion women over the course of the next 2 years sitting down and owning the deepest shadows, the deepest parts of us that we have no desire to open that door into, and sitting with them, alchemizing that, not just loving it or knowing it or understanding, but actually seeing like, where can I change this shadow side into impact work? What is the gift here for me? My birth itself, like just connecting this thought to what you've been saying. My deepest, worst aspects of how I create something came up in my birth. The parts of me that were so clear, this is what's not working in your life. This is what's not. And this is why you're in hour 20 of your labor and you are not close to birthing. And it's interesting, right? Because you have nothing else to do in a birthing consciousness than be with those demons. You have nowhere else to go because you're not doing anything until that baby comes out. And so you can delay and you can delay and you can kick that can down the road, literally until your baby could go into fetal distress, or you could show up and you could do that work. And what I didn't necessarily anticipate was how many people, non-physical people, would be in that room with me. And they weren't even necessarily ancestors. They were me. They were every aspect of me that I had ignored, that I hadn't given moment to process. Because I was very adamant that I would do I had a ceremony even for my maiden. Goodbye, maiden. You don't exist anymore. We're gonna birth my mother. I was doing all of the things, not from like a hustle grind kind of perspective, just like I was showing up in my journey every day. Oh, this is what she needs. This is what she needs. And especially when you're a first time birther, a first time mother, the death of the maiden is actually very hard, because it's literally, you have no idea what life is going to look like prior to. But you've never known what life is going to look like before you go to that moment. But we've made ourselves believe that we know what life is going to be like, that we know that life is linear. And that for me is one of the really big gifts that came from my birthing journey, is like, not only can you not control this, you don't know what it's going to look like. You don't know how long it's going to take. And you don't know that you go from these doctors speak of like, you're going to have 1 centimeter dilation all the way linearly through to 10 centimeters, and then you're going to birth a baby. And in order for us to do that linear transition, we're going to give you Pitocin or whatever it may be to hurry that along. And it's such a theft. It's such a theft.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's not. So many of the women that I worked with, the teachers and the guides, were like, you need to birth the mother before you can birth the baby. But if you are holding on so tight to an identity of you that isn't actually who you are, and you haven't come to an understanding of that yet, you're going to hold on to her. You're not going to birth the But for me, in my case, one of the women that walked into the room, she was so immensely powerful. And I even felt not terror, but intimidation of the power of her presence, her aura, her being. And
A
she
version of
was
you.
me. She was who I am, I guess, every day aiming to embody more. And in moments embody completely, right? And in other times am the opposite of. This is a multi-dimensional, multi-aspect journey of the selves. But I remember this conversation that I had with her, and she said to me, until you sit in the fullest power of who you be right now, this will be hard. This will be hard until you understand. Because I understood I was made for birth. I understood that I was completely capable of birthing. I swear I had no problem getting all the hate every day. I mean, no one will ever understand what it's like to be a birthing, like somebody who doesn't know you comes up and gives you complete life advice about you and your life and about how you're putting your unborn child in danger because of this, that, and the other. And it's like, hello, I'm at a gas station. Who are you? I'm walking down the street. What are you even talking about? And so the amount of bombardment that women get in their general life, but as pregnant women you get, unsolicited, unfounded, and very unresearched, completely unnecessary conversations that you're having on a day in and day out. And so I knew I was ready to birth because it didn't even touch me. It didn't even touch me. And I never lied and said, yeah, I'm going to the hospital. Oh, yeah, it's all good. No, I said, I'm made for birthing, and I birth, and I claimed that every day. But even still in that birthing suite, 9 months, 10 months, and to be honest, I did a lot of birthing prep for years before I was even considering to do this. And it's all around what you're saying. It's like that moment that you can understand, the more pleasure you can hold in your body, the more sensation, the more anchoring into your body, the more equipped you are to work at, doing whatever aspect of feminine work that is, feminine expression, right? But the expectations as well that some of us put on ourselves to have a certain outcome, if you've been doing this work for so long, there's almost like this, it's almost like we're harder on ourselves when we've been on the journey for longer, of like why this isn't, well, okay, if feminine embodiment equals pleasure and XYZ, why don't you have that? Or why is it not this, or whatever? And so I've seen a lot of women on this journey who, birthers or non-birthers, just in their life, of like, okay, I can masturbate this way, or I can have pleasure, or I can, be with a partner or be with multiple partners. I can be by myself. I can, I can live, and however I'm living, I'm fully myself. But it's almost like sometimes I'm getting off track and losing my train of thought because there's so many things like are bombarding me in this question. But
that's what the feminine does.
That's what the feminine does, right? You're like, wait a minute, what am I talking about right now? And I think that's this. In summary, that's the hardest part, right? When you want to come into this fully embodied part and still live in this linear, one-directional world. And coming back to the birthing story is like when you go from 1 centimeter to 10 centimeters and you're not doing that fast enough, you're not doing that in the way that other people need you to be doing it. And your birthing story and your life story and your feminine presence and existence becomes so offensive to everybody around you that even the strongest person, even the one who knows this is who I am, this is what I'm, that has to chip away at you. I mean, I know that you said you had areas of shame in your existence and in your childhood and going through this. So I know that you would have had these moments of like, oh man, can everyone just stop telling me what they think about my life? Which is probably mirroring an aspect of what you think about this as well. So very meandering, very nonsensical way to arrive at that question. But when it all gets too loud, how did you deal with that?
That's the magic of the feminine, right? Surrender. It's like birth, death, sex, it's all the same energy. It's all orgasmic. Life is sexual energy. Death feels like an orgasm, a full body orgasm. And birth at its highest, in its most pure form, gets to be orgasmic. It's all a letting go. Letting go, letting God. And it feels like, because so much of the narrative in this world is like, if you're letting go, you're losing something. You're like, you gotta hold on, hold on, hold on. But actually letting go is a freedom. And it requires such courage, to just die to it. If I'm going to be here, like, let me be here fully. Let me die to it. Let it obliterate me. Let me just give up the resistance. And life has a way of building pressure, building pressure, building pressure, building pressure. So we've got no more resistance. And then when we finally erupt, it's like the gods are like, oh, thank God she let go of the wheel. Like now we can, now she's more able to be like ushered by the waves of life. It's like, and it's this humility. It's like, let me be a child again. Because when I feel like if I'm judging something, then I'm like taking the adult, like I know what's best. This is wrong. I know that. And that's a very lazy attitude to have in life. It's very easy, very convenient. Like, oh, right, wrong, there we go. Don't have to think about that anymore. But if I am in the grit of life and something feels so uncomfortable and it might feel unfair and it might be so overwhelming, but if I'm like, hang on, if let's just go down this journey, if my highest soul has directed me to this point intentionally, and my highest soul has a lot more access to wisdom than my human does.
Yeah.
So if my higher soul has led me to this moment, there must be something behind that. Yeah. Why? And the moment you ask the question, why, possibility opens up and the world becomes bigger. It's like, well, maybe it's going to lead me here. Maybe it's going to lead me here. Maybe it's going to, it's like, why for the people who have done all the work, do they still, have to move through these initiations? Yeah. Maybe because you're here to teach. Yeah. Because you're here to be the wounded healer. And I would not be able to serve the women that I'm here to serve if I didn't have to move through my own initiations.
Yeah.
Would I do it over again? Would I, I would give everything, yes, to serve the women that deserve to feel comfortable in their bodies. Absolutely. So
when you're here to be
like a reframing.
Exactly. And when you're here to be that person, there are no other choices. There are no other pathways.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with the shame? How did you, you said you had a very Catholic family. Did you tell them? Was this something that you delayed?
I was living in Berlin at the time when I started dancing, and I didn't tell anyone while I was doing it. I've also had these experiences like where, I wanted to connect more with mom or this or that, or, and I may have told mum that I'd done some psychedelic explorations, and then I get a phone call from my big sister. Why did you tell mum that? She's now saying that she feels like her womb is falling out, because it's like basically in my desire to connect, I'm like, oh, I want to connect. I want to tell you about my life. And then I've left the country. And then mum is just there with her mind and worst case scenario. And what is my baby doing? And is she okay? And, she's just having to surrender. Meanwhile, I'm off and I'm perfectly fine. But mum's not seeing me every day to know that. Mm-hmm. She's not seeing me every day to be like, okay, this goes beyond everything that I have understood or been taught or conditioned to know that is safe or right or appropriate. And right next to that, I'm seeing that my daughter is okay. And so that's when all those stories and that conditioning gets to disintegrate. But if I'm not there to show my mum, hey, I'm here and I've got this and I'm present and I want you to know that, like, yes, I'm going against the grain, but I'm here. Then it was just something that made no sense to, like, I would be
Share.
offloading that for myself and I wouldn't be in service to her. And so I didn't share that. But then when I knew that I would have to tell my story for other women, I came back to Australia, I told mum. And it was very scary for her. You know, it's like I have to understand that mum's reference point for life, her worldview is like she's grown up with a completely different, you know, if I were my mum and if I were in her shoes and I walked the same path that she walked with everything, with all of her, you know, life's initiations and her, you know, her upbringing and everything, I'd come to the same conclusions as my mother.
Yeah.
I've had a different life, very different reference point. So then when I was explaining, I'm like kind of preparing mum that, yeah, I did that. I was stripping, I was taking off my clothes and dancing for men for money, and women sometimes, you know. And again, her mind's going to worst case scenario. And when I was sharing that I wanted to tell my story publicly, that was very scary for her. And yeah, there was a lot of projection by people, and like not just family, but people outside of family and friends, and they'd look at me different, and you'd see a lot of concern or a lot of projection that I'll bring shame to my family, that, you know, and I remember just like crying myself to sleep, like praying, God, is there another way? Like, please, do I have to do this? Like, I'm worried that I'll lose my family over this. Like just begging, please, is there another way? Please, is there another way? Please, is there another way? Like, my family mean the world to me. And I thought maybe, yeah, what if mum's health declines because I bring this up? And even if it wouldn't be right or fair, but if that's the outcome, then my other brothers and sisters will blame me for, you know, the ill health of my, you know, like all of the stories coming up. And I remember one of my sisters asked me not to rock the boat during COVID because she was pregnant, and she was like, I need mum, please. So again, like this story that mum's sanity or health is on my shoulders and is dependent on me towing the line and not being too much, you know. And it's this real like, do I choose me? Do I choose my truth so that I can serve women that deserve this medicine? Like, am I really choosing these women who don't even know that I exist, might never know me, might never know my name, but I'm willing to put my family, like to lose that relationship to my family to go serve? And that was my choice. And it was terrifying, but it's also the initiation that has made it so that when the financial companies say you're a dangerous business, we want nothing to do with you, and I can't accept payments, you know, it's like, or when I get censored on Instagram, it's like, guys, you got to do better than that. Like, I'm not going anywhere. I've got skin in the game. This isn't just a fun, cool thing because dancing sexy on Instagram seemed like a cool thing to do. Like, I've risked, I've taken serious risk to do this work. I'm going to be doing it until I take my last breath, you know? So it's like every initiation is just creating more. Like, it's just building us up and making more, even if at the time it feels like something is being taken from us or something is about to collapse. And I'll often think of the acorn, like, does the acorn realize as it begins to crack open that it's becoming an oak tree? You know, it's like, it feels like you're being obliterated. It feels like they're cracking open. And when you move through this cycle enough times, you start to clock the pattern. And then you're like, oh, the cracking open, magic is just around the corner. And then you can welcome the cracking open.
Yeah.
You can make love to it. You can get intimate with it instead of resisting and running away. So it's like in those moments, like, and the contraction, like I would say, the woman that I am rebirthing myself into is worth this labor, is worth the contraction. This is just another contraction. It's getting closer. You know, it's like you got to have your eye on the vision, or you've got to search for that crack of light in the darkness, you know, and just like wherever you can, like use your ego. Like,
Yeah.
wow, if I'm going through this, my guides must think I'm ready.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Especially to use that birthing analogy as you everyone in the room knows you're about ready to birth when you tell everyone, I can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that that transition is so important for a woman to go through. And if that was taken away from her, we would be, you know, we sometimes we think that we're saving a woman from birth, but it's like an initiation that builds her into the mother that she's here to be, because she's going to have times in her journey of motherhood where she thinks she can't do it, but she can go back to that birth and remind herself, remember when I thought that I couldn't and I did. Like, it's this part of this perfect design of birth that she's meant to lose faith in herself. She's meant to lose hope. And then she gets to see herself rise. And when we try and take that off her and save her from it, we do her such a disservice and an injustice.
It's like making me wonder, in your analogy earlier, between do I want to be the lifesaver or the teacher?
Mm.
Do you want to be either?
Mm.
Are you either of those things, or are you simply a signpost saying, I'm
Be
a
the
woman.
mirror.
I'm a woman who's walked where you've walked, or I'm walking alongside of you because we're all going the same way. And shifting out of that, you know, the pressure on your shoulders to be the one that makes sure that your mother's health is okay, or that, you know, every one of us, whether we're the eldest, middle, youngest daughter, you know, whether we have children or we don't have children, we all carry so much on our shoulders, no matter who we are and whatever path we're taking. And yes, there are very many versions of privilege. And I have learned that privilege has so many different forms that it shows itself in. Sometimes the form is the color of your skin, or your intellect, or your, you know, family's money, or just your family's love of being there. And I like that you said in the beginning, I have privilege in all forms, because that really said to me, yeah, there was a house that I could live in and there was food on the table. But what I have is the privilege of, I have a family that loves me, because that's a privilege that very few people actually have. And I'm wondering how you navigated risking losing that, because that is the ultimate, that's the goal that most people on this planet wish for, is like two parents and siblings that just love them, that just are there for them. And so when you said, I'm going to potentially risk this for all these women that don't know me, I'm going to risk not being able to take payments, I'm going to risk having, you know, my marketing and distribution platform shut down consistently, I'm going to risk ostracization, you know, from all these avenues and channels. How did you rise from that? How did you navigate that? How did you put one step in front of the other?
Well, probably with a whole lot of messiness. A lot of ugly crying, like a lot of just dying to it, just cracking open and just living the experiment. All right, life, just show me the next step. Just show me the next step. And yeah, I mean, the risking losing my family was very scary. Like, as I said, I was just like crying myself to sleep night after night, begging for a different way, but knowing that there was no other way. And spoiler alert, I have a beautiful relationship with my family. And I didn't have to lose them, but I couldn't be sure of that at the time. And yeah, whenever there have been other things, I think part of this work of the feminine as well, and the embodiment of the feminine, is acknowledging and honoring and connecting to the dark feminine. And the dark feminine is the part of us, like the great mother that understands the cycle of life, that you don't get life without death, and that it's all useful. Like the dark feminine, Surgeons, dark feminine, dark masculine work. They're willing to cut your body open and stick their hands inside of you to bring you back to life. Fertilizer, like the dead rotting carcass becomes fertilizer for the soil. Like every piece has its role. You know, the mother who is just like has to like scrape the pus out of her child's wound, and she knows that it's going to hurt, but she's willing to do it because she's seeing the bigger picture. She's seeing the bigger picture. Medicine work, she knows that just the right amount of poison will actually revive you. Like understanding that it's not so black and white. And if we understand that we don't get summer without the winter, that there's a time to die, that there's a beauty to die, a reverence to these death portals, the letting go, the cracking open, like there's an element of birth that is grotesque. That it, like, this is just part of it, and it's bringing harmony to this like polarization of the different aspects of life, like this separation. It's like, no, it's all part of it. You don't get like, we eat, we shit. This is part of it. The purging, to not be afraid of the purging, to not be afraid of the dying. When we can have that wider perspective than when we're in it and it feels like we're losing something, can we breathe into it?
Yeah.
Can we welcome it? And then you can actually even like find the eroticism in it. This is what it is to be alive. My whole body is scared. Well, what is that? It's just a lot of energy. It's like my whole body is electric. And then when you can shift the story around it and just feel the sensation of it, it could even become orgasmic.
Yeah.
You purge, you get angry, and then you feel yourself like, fuck, thank God that I'm a woman that isn't afraid to lock myself in a room and scream at a pillow, because it means that I'm alive and it means that I'm feeling it, and I'm not just like copying it, suppressing it, and becoming a walking wooden board. Like there's life moving through me.
Yeah.
So no one gets out of life unscathed. It's not about, everything in life is our relationship. Like I could have my best year ever and it might be the same year that I crash my car, I get robbed, I get this and that, because it's not about what happens. It's about how I'm relating to what happens.
Yeah. The choices that you make.
The choices that I make, the perception that I have, the script that I'm writing. Yeah, it's like how do I get to be in, how do I turn this into a love story? Hang on, how is this thing the very thing that I didn't realize that I prayed for? Because right now it looks like the opposite to my prayers, but like if I just hold on long enough and stay curious and give some space to the mystery to play out, how am I going to be like, oh my God, you guys, you really got me then. I didn't know how you were going to pull that one out of the bag, but oh my gosh, now I can see if that didn't happen, then I wouldn't have gotten here. And it's like, just hold on a little bit longer, stay curious. How can I get to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that happened.
Yeah. Going forward into your stripper teachers, was there a specific teacher that emerged and literally guided, or was it everything that you were learning was by absorption, by osmosis, by location, vocation, all of that? Like when you say there was something there for you to learn, how did that play out in physical reality?
Every person, every trigger, every scenario, every conversation was a teacher. So I really saw my going into the strip clubs was like I was going behind enemy lines in the war of conditioning. And I was
Mm.
going to the very place that society, church, family, school told me that I should not go. And if I end up there, it means that I'm lost. Like I would never choose to be there, and I certainly wouldn't ever enjoy it. And I was kind of like, wow, like what else have I not questioned in life? I kind of realized like I'd just been moving through life with this backpack with all these beliefs that I'm carrying. I'm like, hang on, wait, like I never stopped to put it down and be like, well, hang on, let's take a look at what's in here and hold it up to the light and be like, is that mine, or am I just carrying it because someone handed it to me? And I never thought to question that. So um, I got to confront all of my conditioning around shame, sensuality, freedom of expression, what makes someone respectable. Like, am I any less respectable if I'm now working this job where I'm walking around in 6-inch heels uh, and my lingerie, and I'm taking off clothes for money? Are the people that come in here any less respectable? Um, Competition in the sisterhood, female relating, male female relating, asking for what you want, talking about money, asking for money, scarcity, like just so much like shame, projections, envy, like just I'll give you some examples. Like there was one time I was dancing on the stage, and this guy is looking up at me and he is in awe, and he's like, wow, you are so beautiful and you're powerful. Like, thank you. Like, this is amazing. And the guy next to him could barely look at me. And, you know, he wouldn't look at me. And then like, if he looked, he'd kind of like grimace or cringe or something. And I was like, wow, you guys are having two completely different experiences.
Yeah.
Whilst watching or being around the same stimulus. And so whatever experience you're having has more to do with yourself and your history than it does me. Like I'm a blank canvas here, you know, because you can read a book and learn about the nature of projections, but until you've lived it, you don't know it. And that's the embodiment piece again. So it's like nothing teaches you the nature of projections like standing up on stage in nothing but a thong, dancing. Because people are having their own experiences. And it's like, wow, you get good at understanding what belongs to me and what doesn't belong to me. Sorry, that's not mine. Thank you. I walked into a dance. This guy wanted another girl. He was a big spender. One of the girls came out on the floor and was like, oh, you're here. Come. He wants another girl. And as soon as I got in the room, he whispered in her ear, I want someone else. And her face dropped and she felt so bad. And I was like, it's cool. Doesn't touch me. I was 30 years old. I knew who I was. Had I gone into that job at the age of 18, I may have walked out with fillers and nose jobs and boob jobs, and I may have made it mean something. But I was in this job eyes wide open at a certain age and stage of my development. I got to see women who were at a younger part of their development who were feeding off the energy, you know, and they were hungry. They're like, the patrons come down in the lion's den and the women are feasting and they're riding this high of this power. And I get it. It's like, wow, like this part that outside of these doors we're shamed for, but in here it's our power, right? And it's celebrated, you know. And there were like the young girls who were kind of getting intoxicated off of that. Like I remember the first time, you know, I started going out and I realized, wow, I get drinks bought for me just because I'm a woman. This is great. I'll use that. Let's go out and get some free drinks. And then you just do a bit of learning and growing and maturing, and you realize, okay, actually that doesn't feel so good. Or, you know, you learn about integrity. And, you know, you'd meet other women in the club who were just at a bit further along on that maturation, and they were in service to the men. And they really understood that what they were offering was medicinal and that it was a transmission. And they were activating more of a priestess archetype. I got triggered by this woman when I first started. And sometimes the night's quiet. You don't have anyone, you don't have any distractions. So I'm just sitting here like, I'm like feeling like she just grinds my gears. And so I was like, okay, Caitlin, let's unpack this. You got nothing else to do right now. Like, why does she trigger you? What don't you like about her? I was like, I hate the way that she asks for money. It's like, okay. I mean, this is kind of the job. Like, it's literally the job. It's like, you know, it's like save some for the rest of us. Or she's she grabs it, it's like, wow, so where am I not giving myself permission to ask for what I want? And to see a woman who's actually asking for what she wants and taking care of her needs is triggering me. So just like all of these different experiences speaking
And
to men.
how is that for you now? How do you ask for something now? Is it challenging for you?
Depends what it is. I generally have a policy of nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I'll ask for what I want. I mean, that could be anything. I have a tendency to ask with no expectation, and I might put that out there. Um,
What did you learn about power? And how does that play into asking?
What did I learn about power? Power is big, and there's lots of different types of power. I learned about the kind of power that I resonate with, that I want to connect with. And it's a quiet power, and it's a reflective power. So one of the courses that I teach is on devotional lap dance, which I very much learned in the strip clubs from observing this. And, if we go back to these younger girls, they're discovering power, and they're kind of feeding off of it, and they're getting high off of it. Versus the women who were so connected to their power that they were in abundance, and they were there to share their power. And let me honor you with my power. Because if I am like, I want you to like me, it feels so good when you like me, like I'm feeding off of that. I'm extracting. Or I might be I'm asking for it, and there's consent here. You're choosing to have this dance, and you're feeding me, and maybe they're getting a feedback as well. But if I need that to feel good about myself, it's kind of it's not sustainable. Whereas if I really truly know who the fuck I am, I'm a woman, and I make mistakes all the time, and I have more questions than I have answers, and I've made peace with who I am. I'm not perfect, but I like me. And I make my own mistakes, and I own that. Now, if I bow before you to give you an offering of a dance, and I don't need anything from you, I don't need you to give me anything, because I feel so full in myself, and still I'm choosing to bow before you, that hits differently. And that also creates this reflection, that the way to reflect someone else's power is to be in your own. Because people are like, wow, she's bowing for me. She doesn't need anything from me. Who am I to receive? It's like if a queen bow before you, it's like, ooh,
right.
It activates this worthiness. It creates a space for them to step into their power if they're not already.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's like matriarchal power, this circulation of abundance. When you've got so much to give, it's like, oh my gosh, it feels so good here. I'm flowing. Let me share some of this. Like come ride this train. There's plenty of room. It's abundant. It's not this like.
And how do you get into that state? Is that something that you are just naturally living now, or is that something that you put yourself into when you're going to do these lap dances?
It's both, because life isn't linear, right? We don't just get to a stage. Like, life is always going to move in these cycles. So my like the benchmark is higher, so that I'm more consistently in that state, or I know how to get back there quicker if I slip. But there's always going to be moments where I forget, or I've dropped my guard, or I've been in an environment that hasn't really fueled me. And so I need to like get back consciously, get back into that space. But it just kind of runs through my veins more and more because it's been so normalized in my system.
And what is that practice? You know, if someone's listening to this and they really want what you've got and they want to live that life in, you know, being the queen, bowing down, power meets power in this very different way to what most of us have grown up inoculated in. What is the first step to that? Or what is the practice for that?
So there are three gateways that a woman must pass in order to fully step into her queendom. She must feel safe in her body. She must unlock permission to feel sexy in her body. And then she can activate sovereignty. So it's safe, sexy, sovereign. And I have programs and courses that look at all three of these. But step one is you need to anchor safety in the body. Like, even if we have grown up in privilege and we've been very lucky, there's epigenetic imprinting. There's a lot that happens in this world. Most of us will still walk into the car, or, you know, if it's dark, you know, you're walking with your keys between your knuckles, or there's just a deeply embedded sense that we need to protect ourselves. And so just doing the work, the nervous system regulation, the embodiment practices to anchor safety into the body is foundational to that. Then we can start peeling back the mask, doing the big deep work to unlock the aspects of ourselves that we've repressed. So our sensuality, our magnetism, our seduction, acknowledging that seduction isn't a dirty word. We see seduction as manipulation, but you can seduce someone into living their best life. And seduction in the hands of like heart-connected women is leadership that this world needs. Because if I'm seducing someone, I'm going first. I'm not pointing someone saying, oh, go over there. I'm like, follow me. So if I want to seduce someone into living their best life, it requires that I live my best life and I walk my talk. So seduction as a spiritual practice, all of these unlearnings and reframings. But the place to start is building a relationship with your body, acknowledging her, not it. What does she need? What does she say? What does she feel? Most of us, we haven't been taught how to listen, how to connect, you know, or we want something from her. Yeah, I want to be an orgasmic woman. Okay. Like, that's a lot of pressure on her. You know, imagine if you had a lover who was like, I just want to make you come. It's like, you know, how often are we treating ourselves in a way that we wouldn't want someone else to treat us? So yeah, I would say like the takeaway piece that someone can take home from this and start implementing is to talk to your body, to talk to yourself, like acknowledge her as your, you know, it's like there's me, there's my body, and we're a team, we're a duo. And so building that relationship, what do I need? What is she hungering for? Does she need fresh air? Does she need sunlight? Does she need to go to bed earlier? Does she need, you know, good fuel? Does she need to take a walk? Does she need movement? And it seems very simple, but it changes the way that we relate to everything.
It's coming back to what you said at the beginning, which is like, I needed to parent myself. I needed to raise myself.
Yeah. Yeah. She's everything you've got in this lifetime. And the reason that we're able to do anything. And she shows up for us every day. She'll acclimate in different temperatures. She digests your food. She tastes your food. She sends oxygenated blood around to your organs. Like, she has got your back. And if you listen to her and you said, okay, for the next hour is you. Next hour, I'm going to turn on some music and I'm just going to be with myself, because there's a difference between spending time by ourselves and spending time with ourselves.
Very true.
You know, and you're just like, I'm going to drop in and I'm just going to be here. Maybe I stretch, maybe I dance, maybe I sit in silence, but I'm not going to pick up my phone. I'm not going to pick up a book. I'm just going
Be.
to be. And like feel the way that she might light up. She's like, oh, I get you all to myself.
Mm. I really like the way you think about yourself as a child, because that is what children need, right? Undivided presence, attention that actually is undivided, is unconditional, and that love that just really just overflows. And that literally changes the cells of your body.
Mm.
That changes the identity that you hold. Because if you are a woman that is so unconditionally loved, held, seen, known, understood, why are you searching that from anybody else? That power dynamic shifts back into you. And so you, doesn't matter what anybody else says. The guy sends you out of the room because you're not this, that, or the other. You know that you are. Doesn't touch, doesn't flinch, water off a duck's back.
Mm. Yeah. When I like, and as you said, imagine if every woman woke up tomorrow and they knew who the fuck they were.
Mm.
And they had their back. I feel this. I'm sorry if that's not convenient. Body's giving me a no. Body's giving me a yes. And we just like, yeah, we had our back. You know, it's like, oh, body says this, intuition says this, energy says this.
Yeah.
We didn't second guess ourselves.
Many years ago, I was involved in the femtech scene as an investor, and I was sitting there so uncomfortable in this room of these, powerhouse women talking about all of this technology that could help women connect with their bodies, track their cycles, do all the things that femtech does, And I'm sitting there going, this is total bullshit. This is total bullshit. What are we all talking about? And I felt very called to just stand up and say something in that arena of, you don't need a phone to track your cycle. In fact, the more that you're on the phone, the less you know how to track your cycle. The more that EMF is interfering with your own emission, with your own EMF, and people don't even know that people have EMF. This is not like a technology creation. And the more that you're in touch with nature, in the biosphere, and the interacting with that EMF, the more that you're going to have an understanding of unlocking the wisdom of your body, the intelligence of your body. But you need silence, you need stillness, and you need presence. You don't need technology, you don't need a tracker, you don't need to be wearing something, all of these things are taking you outside of the body. And now you're substituting the innate wisdom of your own biotechnology with this external technology system. And I think coming back, into, it's not just that women are made to birth. Because, okay, women are made to birth, and you can have multiple avenues for how do you birth. You can, there are so many ways to get that baby out of this body. But when you're holding a vision for what if birth was a sexual orgasmic experience, and we work backwards from there into, well, where are we available today, and how do we move slowly and without obsession, without expectation, without pressure, just with the openness and willingness to see how that may come to be for us. Even if you are a woman who has finished birthing, will never birth, has no interest in birthing, cannot birth, whatever. These are principles of moving into a coherence with self, into a safety with self, where your body is your primary compass, where your body is your primary home.
Mm.
What I'm learning from everything that you've spoken about today is, it's not about the big things. It's not about the big goals and the big desires, and that I'm going to be an orgasmic woman, but I've never had an orgasm and I've never touched myself. But by, in 10 weeks time, that's what I'm going to be. And that's where I'm going to get to. And I think there's a very big obsession at the moment with quantum leaping your life. I think what I'm learning from you and what I'm learning from my own journey is actually it's the daily, consistent culture that you wake up in your own body. What is the culture of you? How do you come to reverence in you? How do you make this your temple? How do you make this your church? How do you make this the altar that you, if you know how to give a queen lap dance to a man, do you know how to give that to yourself? And it doesn't have to be a lap dance itself, but what's the energy that you're giving out that you could be giving here? And that's really where everything that you've been saying and the conversation is adding up to for me is, if I want to be the queen and have whatever kind of power is right for my body and my life, it's how do I show up at the church of me every day? How do I pray there? How do I serve there first? Service in safety, then in sensuality, seduction. And if I want to guide, lead, it's by example. It's been a very powerful conversation. It's been a really, really, it's been so, I had so many questions that I wanted to ask you, and this was just, they all revealed in different ways than I wanted to necessarily. It's the difference between extracting information and being given the medicine of the presence of you in this moment, right? And I think that's what we have to shift away from, coming back to the femtech and the cycles. It's like, if you believe that the only role that you have in terms of working with your body is knowing when you're going to be bleeding, you're missing it. You're missing it all. If the purpose of your tracker is to know when you need to buy feminine hygiene products so that you can continue going on with your day, you've missed it. So use your tracker because you're not in it. That's not what the vessel of this reverence and this creation body is not about when to shove something in so you can go back to work. To be crude. To be completely crude.
To be real. To be real. I love that you brought it back to the Church of Self, because when you were sharing that story about the femtech, I was thinking, it's just the new church. That technology is the new church. It's if you want success, if you want absolution, if you want whatever, you have to come here. And it's just everything that is getting us to outsource our power and our strength and our faith and our courage and our agency into something outside of our own body, and like, this is the thing, this is what I came to see the church had, like the role that the church played, when I first kind of was like, okay, I've got this call to become a stripper and I really feel like this is spirit speaking to me. And can you imagine the conversations? Did you hear about Caitlin? She's like gone off the rails. She's become a stripper. She thinks God sent her into the strip club. And then what if I have this experience and they're right? And I discover that I've taken it too far and I got lost and I thought I was somewhere, but I wasn't. And what if there are things that I can't undo? And what if I do bring harm to my body or to my soul? And I can't unlive that experience, and I sat with the shame of that potential of like having to come back with my tail between my legs, harmed.
Yeah.
And the shame, like the embarrassment of getting that wrong. And I sat with that potential and I said to myself, well, if that's how it plays out, then that will be okay, because I'm allowed to live my life and make mistakes.
Yeah.
And at least that way, I'll be able to have this conversation and say, I did that for a while. I learned a lot from that experience. It was very uncomfortable. And I know now because I lived it through my body that didn't feel good.
Yeah.
As opposed to me never going and doing the thing because church, society, school told me I'm not supposed to. So I don't dare follow that curiosity or that pull or that desire because I've given my trust and my agency to something outside. And that's what the church does. In my experience, that's what the church did to me. And that's what I see. Is like, that's when people are like, what's embodiment anyway? Like, what are these big, these words that we're throwing around, embodiment, what does it mean? It means that you actually are living from this vessel, that your agency is here, that when you're making your decisions, it comes from the compass of your body, and that we trust the body. So it's coming back to the church of the body.
And that's the reason why safety is so important as a foundational mechanism and practice, because actually if you don't have safety in your body, a lot of people will start to mistake intuition, which is really hypervigilance, scanning, knowing what everybody else is thinking, knowing the temperature of the room, knowing the level of safety or threat in the external, right? And so when you're constantly processing everybody else's information and everybody else's movements and everybody else's mood and emotions and, the shadow that you feel in them, it does two things. Firstly, it keeps you out of feeling that within yourself. So you're not processing your own shadow. You're not in connection and in contact with that. So, that stays suppressed. But secondly, assume that you've been able to process your own shadow and you get to a point where you are comfortable and safe within your own body. You won't be able to hear your intuition if you're constantly scanning the room. You won't be able to hear your own voice because you've got everybody else's voice in your ears, and you're looking at safety in a very different way. That's in hypervigilance, that's in threat analysis, that's in risk assessment. Intuition is very different. It doesn't shout, it doesn't talk back to you, and it doesn't convince. Going back to what you said earlier about, the seduction says, it whispers, come follow me. And if you can get to know your seduction, if you can get to know what you're being seduced by, you're probably very close to, if not listening to that internal, into that compass, into that intuition, because it doesn't care if you don't listen. It just holds the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Don't listen, you have a world of pain waiting for you, but you have to go through that. Intuition or scanning, the ego, some people call it, whatever you want to call it, it's very loud and it's very convincing, it's very manipulative. And in some ways it is the shadow to the seductress, right? Because a seductress is the empowered, this is the way that we're going, and the manipulator is the one that has no power, it's the shadow. It's like, I have to convince you, I have to control you, I have to be over you. Trick.
Mm.
So where is that anchor point, internally or externally? And that's where the safety comes in. If you know how to trust yourself, you know how to know your own body system and be quiet in that, be still in that, be safe in that, it just naturally becomes easier. Especially because nothing about the path going forward would likely be easy. If you're a person who's come here to dismantle systems or go against the grain, that's not a fun pathway. No one's doing it
Love and light.
No one's doing it for the fun, okay? Would you like to risk everything that's valuable to you, everything that you believe in for this? Yeah, I'm going to do that. Says no one who's living outside of their body. So you have to have the safety first to say, yeah, I'm going to follow that path. I'm going to follow that whisper. I'm going to follow that which feels true to me, and risk everything that is actually really coveted to me in the process. And I mean, if you really get into the deeper stories in the Bible around, you know, saints that follow that, whether that's, they say it's the voice of God or their own self, you know, it becomes you know, semantics at the end of it, but it's that knowing that there's something bigger here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm still like, I definitely, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I just want to speak to and acknowledge I'm not here to trash anybody's spiritual beliefs. And I actually have a relationship to um, a lot of the Christian figures. Mother Mary gave me an orgasm through my third eye. That's a whole different story. You know, it's been reclaiming
Right.
the truth of these like the mission of Jesus, outside of the dogma of the church. Um, and a lot of other people have had really beautiful experiences in the church, in the same way that I had a very empowered experience in the strip clubs, and other people do not have empowered experiences in strip clubs. So it's not black and white. There's no one size fits all. We've all got our own stories.
That's the
But
entire
again,
point, right?
that's the embodiment, right? It's like, you do you. I don't need to understand it. I don't need to agree with it. It's none of my business. What I want for everyone is to be true to themselves.
Mm. So tell us a little bit more about Strip Her and the other courses that you run, and how this all comes together in the end. You know, what is it that you are now doing with this wisdom?
Um, okay, so I now have a 12-month mystery school called the Temple of Venus Mystery School. And that's a 12-month online group mastermind with a 6-night in-person retreat. And we move through all of these, we move through the 3 gateways of safe, sexy, sovereign. The retreat is coming up in June at Strip Her. And people can book into that separately as well. I have a couple of spots left. So, yeah, I'm having more and more online offerings as I'm kind of wanting to reach more women. I do run some events in Sydney. So check my website to see if there's anything coming up. I'm not sure when this is going to go to air, but the mystery school is the big mama. That's the full deep dive where we do the deep work, and it's really incredible, beautiful work. And the 6-night retreat is also very powerful. If someone can, like, if they just want to kind of have that in-person experience. That last time I did the stats, I think I've taken about 69 women through that program, and yeah, the far majority of them will go so far as to call it life-changing, and it really shifts the way that they show up in life forevermore. So it's a really powerful program. And then the 12-month is like, okay, don't just let it be something you did, because so often, like, we're doing medicine ceremonies, we're doing that, we go to these cool things, but then we're not living it. So the integration is half of it, you know, to actually, how does it look out in the real world to be that woman? What does it look like when it's, you know, when you're showing up for work? How does it look like when you're in traffic? What does it look like when someone is projecting onto you at a restaurant? Or, you know, just like really anchoring these pieces into the body so that we live and breathe it, you know, and it becomes who we are, not just some cool thing that we did.
Amazing. Tell people how they can find you so they can get to connect with you deeper, hear about this.
So my website is caitlinerica.com. My Instagram is at caitlinerica. So it's, CaitlinErica. Come find me, ask me your questions. Most of the women that come into my space are curious and also terrified. And so if that's what you're feeling, this pull and this push and this, like, I want that, but I couldn't possibly.
This is the place for you.
That's the sweet spot. That's where all the magic is.
Thank you so much for today. I have so deeply enjoyed this conversation. There's so much wisdom that you've brought to this, to not only to this conversation, but to the world. I know that it is not that you are walking this path lightly. You have chosen and been initiated time and time again, and it's felt, it's experienced, it's heard from you. And I just want to thank you so much for the service that you're in day out. You know, it is not that we take these journeys because it might be a fun, easy way to make a buck. This is life work, this is initiation work, and this is remembrance work. And so thank you so much for holding a beacon of light so that others can return in and connect with these beacons and these light way showers. So thank you so much for everything that you do, because I am sure that there is a severe lack of gratitude for the role that you play in this world. And if there isn't, then let me just add my voice to the chorus of thanks. But you are just a truly amazing and really special human. So thank you. Thank you for being on with us today and speaking your heart.
Wow.
That's just yours. You're welcome. You're very welcome.
It's been a pleasure.
Okay. And you can find Erica, Caitlin Erica, we're going to put all of her links in the show notes below. All right.
Amazing.
I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation, because there are so few women on the planet that go from being a birthing doula and having this body of knowledge about birth and the role of sensual, seductive, orgasmic birth as initiation work, to go into strip clubs and into initiation work at the other extreme, and then joining all of that together into the body of work that she's now working with, which is really fundamentally about owning all the aspects of you, owning who you are, coming back into self, using feminine embodiment as the compass to your life. And instead of, standing on the outside of the life that you wish to be living, to go courageously and boldly into that, and owning that, and using that as the compass of your own seductive, erotic, beautiful life. She is a woman with a felt presence. I just really got a lot out of this conversation for myself, and I know that you will too. There are so many little pieces of wisdom along the way, and I think one of the really beautiful things about sitting in a room with a woman, or even digitally with a woman who has met herself in the darkest parts of her, into the shadows of her, is that you also get to meet yourself there. And I really hope that the frequency that we're both holding together in this conversation, in this transmission, can help you to feel those parts of you that are yearning to be unlocked, to be given more space in the sun, to come to light, to come and be heard. Because I think one of the things that I'm getting from this conversation, and I hope that it brings up to your mind when you're listening, is that you can be an extremely great birther and an extremely great death dyer. I don't know. You can let go really well, is I think what I'm trying to say there. But if you need to do them at the right times. And I think what I really got out of this conversation with Caitlin was, what am I actually able to birth now? What is it that's desiring to be birthed? How do I birth that? And who is she that I'm birthing? Or who is it that I'm stepping into that I've already birthed, or that already exists? Who am I parenting myself into? We get into a lot of different viewpoints and ways in which to look into that. And what I'm really taking away from this conversation is, did I get too good at letting go? Did I get too good at letting it die, too good at doing the destruction? Can I now bring in the birth? And the birth in a really intentional way, like, who am I birthing? Who is the seductress? Who is the queen? How do I meet my power in that way? It's a really interesting conversation, and one that I hope begs deeper questions of you. And Caitlin talks a lot about how she had to unpack the backpack of conformity, the war of conformity, she calls it. Where are you just idly and blindly accepting aspects of your life that don't really fit with who you are? And are you so in search of the linear A to B that you're interfering with the feminine birthing process? You know, we talk about the idea of birthing in a hospital and not birthing quickly enough that you get Pitocin. And what does that rob you of as a woman? What is the wisdom that could have been there for you if you didn't give up in that moment? So for anyone who's really going through it right now, yes, the darkest is before the dawn. Yes, you give up right before you're about to break through, but don't rob yourself of the wisdom that's coming as a result of that. And whether you're birthing in a birthing suite or birthing in a strip club or somewhere, anywhere that is outside of those paradigms, I think there's a lot of opportunity in this conversation to think deeply about, what do I need in order to birth more smoothly this woman that I am becoming? And once I do, how do I parent and raise myself to be that fullest, powerful version of myself? I hope you get something beautiful out of this conversation. I certainly have. And I really, really would love to hear your comments and feedback, any questions, anyone else you would love to be listening to. Okay,